Hello everyone and welcome to the My Open Path session on wholesaling houses. Today's subject matter is talking with potential sellers. My name is Jack Bosch. I'm co-founder of myopenpath.com, the largest training library for real estate investing, online wealth building, and financial independence on the planet. All right, so with that said, let's get started. What will you learn today? Today you will learn the following. You will learn what it takes to gather information, right? You will learn how to do that. You will learn how to get information. Get information when talking to the seller. You will learn what to say and what not to say, and you will learn how to negotiate over the phone. All right. Right, so that's the main pieces we're going to talk about right now. And as I said, let's get going. So module number one is gathering the right information when talking to the seller. So when an owner calls, and after you send them a piece of direct mail, after you send them a letter, after you send them a postcard, once you got put a door hanger or something on there, or whatever different ways you found that we already talked about to get a hold of those owners that you think are not interested in their properties anymore. When an owner calls you back, or perhaps you have a wraparound thing on your car and you drive around neighborhoods and somebody picks up the phone and calls you because they have the house that they want to sell, then you want to be prepared, very simply. Because this initial call, right, like it says there on the screen, is crucial because you're building at this point rapport with the owner, and this has a huge impact on whether they decide to do business with you or with the next guy down the road that's going to call them on that house. So therefore, very simple, it's important to be friendly, professional, confident, ask the right questions, answer their questions correctly. And getting this part right means that you have the good shot of getting the deal done. Let me actually go quickly one slide back, just in case you take notes. You can actually take those pieces down. So the key is, again, getting this part right. This means that you have a good shot of getting the deal. And getting this part wrong, this initial kind of part, without bringing it up again, where if you're not friendly, you're not professional, not confident, don't ask the right question, guess what? Then it almost guarantees that the deal will not go through, and that you're going to be walking away empty-handed. So here's the thing. There's a formula to this. There's a process to this, but you gotta make sure that you put that smile on your face, because if you do this formula totally grudgy, do like grumpy and not with a smile on your face, and you just like then don't be surprised if you, at the end of the day, you don't get deals. So here we go. Be friendly, professional. Starts literally when you pick up the phone. People do business with people they know, like, and trust. It's been proven again and again and again and again, right? Just think about it. If you need to call a plumber, and you've worked with two plumbers before, one was polite, friendly, courteous, professional, cleaned up after himself, and the other one was a pretty rude SOB, and he was like he was dirty, and both got the job done, and both charged you the same. Who would you call back again? Of course, you call the guy back that is nice and professional and clean and on time and all those kind of things. So it's only logic. It's only human beings, normal the Ten Commandments for that matter, right? So here's some good pointers to make sure your caller gets the best first impression. Number one, you want to pick up the phone if you can, unless you do a lot of volume. If you do a lot of volumes, then you can have a call center answer for you. But the point is, when somebody calls, somebody should be picking up the phone. If you let it go into some voicemail, and the voicemail is not even adjusted to say, hey, if you're calling about this house, blah, 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 but instead it's like dogs barking in the background and people and kids screaming, and there's just some random message that's been recorded, it's going to turn them off. They don't even know. How would you think that somebody who answers the phone call like that even has the money to buy a house from you if you're in distress? No, you think that guy's broke, just as bad broke as you. So, or not as you personally, but if you're the distressed seller that wants to sell, and then somebody on the other side. However, if you have somebody that picks up and says like, "Hi, this is Jim Smith or Mary Smith, and with XYZ property buyers," okay, great. how can I help you? And you go to the questions and you have a smile on your face and things like that. Then they're like, oh, wow, these people actually know what they're doing. And there's actually a chance that they really can help me, right? Think about what they're thinking. So when you pick up the phone, smile before you say hello, and also ask them right away how you can help them. I just did that naturally, and that's what you want to do too. For the times you cannot answer the phone, like after hours or so, again, make sure that the voicemail is friendly, precise, gives a reasonable time frame on when you will call them back. Don't tell them, hey, I don't know when I'm going to call back, so just leave a message, I'll call you back. Don't say I'm calling you back in the next hour when you know you can't call back in the next hour. So point your voicemail to say, hey, somebody, if you're calling after hours, somebody's going to call you back the next business day. Now they have an expectation. They know they called at 6 p.m., they called in too late. The next day at 8 or 9 or 10 or 11 or somebody was going to call them back. And be prepared, basically with a cheat sheet in a sense, that that allows you to go through the conversation easily. Now, those cheat sheets can be used online. There's virtual tools for those. I'll show you one in a moment. Or you can even have them literally printed out in front of you in the car. You pull over and you take that phone call when necessary. So the other thing is, be confident. You can be confident even when starting just out, and be a little prepared. They say it sometimes, and I usually am not a big fan of that statement, but in this case it makes sense. You fake it till you make it. And what I mean by that in this case is, if you don't know much about real estate yet, if you're not very prepared about that, that's the first deal that you might do, then you're almost like peeing your pants, you're so nervous. Don't let that show. You're going to be on the call and saying like, yes, hello, this is Mary Smith, this is Jim Smith. How can I help you with property buyers? How can I help you? Awesome, great, thank you very much for calling. How are you doing today? How can I help you? Okay, great, you're interested in selling your house? Wonderful, let me ask you a couple of questions. And if you're in the middle of something, then it's like, hey, can you put you on hold for just one moment? I'll be right back. You can tell them, I just want to make sure I have the property file in front of me or so. Then you put them on mute and you get out of wherever you are to a quiet place and grab that sheet, and then you unmute them again. It's like, hey, Mr. Smith, yes, I'm back. So apologize for that little delay. Let's get going. What are we? Tell me, what's the property address, and so on and so forth and so forth. So now you are going into that conversation, and even if you were in this quiet place, and if you had everything in front of you and you just freaked out, then it's just like, you know what, can I put you just on hold for about 10 seconds? I just need to grab another pen. Period. You put on hold. You're like, oh my God, freaking out, whatever it is that you need to do. You gather, you collect yourself, and you unmute, and it's like, yes, hello, Mr. Cello. Wonderful. Thank you very much for your patience. So let's go. And then we want to cover a few things right now that you define on a cheat sheet, that you leave next to the phone, that you have, or electronically, that you can ask the right questions, and also get some common, frequently asked questions already prepared in front of you. So here's how your call process or call program looks, or our call program actually, that we categorize the questions that we ask. So, for example, you ask, if the owner does not have much time, we may only gather the essentials. So one of the things you ask the owner, they called you in the first place, because the best time to talk to a seller is when they call you, right? So when they call you, they usually have a few minutes. They're not just calling for 10 seconds. They have, if you have to call them back because you missed their call, now they might be already in their car, on the way to the car, on the way to dinner, on the way to lunch, on the way to, you name it, already on the next call, and now they don't have the time anymore. So therefore, the best way to talk to people is when they are calling you. So chances are at that point they have some time, and if they don't have time, you ask for a convenient time to call them back and ask them the rest of the questions. But here, if you look at that, this is like on the screen here, it says caller, owner of record, contact information, property liens, value, and so on and so forth. And so there's a few things that we ask the people when we go for that, right? Here's a quick overview right there on the screen. So now the main pieces are really the ownership information, the property information, and any kind of lien and value information. That's basically what we want to ask for. So the cheat sheet, the script should contain the following: a very simple, friendly predefined greeting script, basically something that you can read off every single time until you have it memorized, so that, or whoever takes the phone call until they have it memorized. By having something like that written down, also you can start outsourcing that. So if you want to do more than a deal whenever the deal comes along, but instead you want to do 10 deals a month, chances are you will no longer be able to take every phone call. So in that moment, you want to have something that's written, that's scripted out, not just to help you, but to help the next person that comes in line and actually asks those questions. So you want to have that script. The menu, you also want to have space for the minimum information you want to get from the caller, there, which is very simply, you want to get their name, you want to get their phone number right away off the gate, just in case you get disconnected. Have you ever called Amex? Amex does exactly the same thing. They're like, oh, Mr. Bosch, thank you very much for calling American Express. You are a whatever customer. Just in case we get disconnected, can you give me, what phone number are you calling from? Well, you give them their phone number, and then guess what they just did? They just, not only is it useful in case you do get disconnected, but it's also useful for them to update their records. And you do the same thing. You have their name and the mailing address, but you don't have their phone number. So now it gives you an additional piece of information that you can use to call them back. Also, you ask them, are you the sole owner of the property? Or if not, are there other people on title? Because why would you need that? Because if there's 5 people on title and one of them calls you, how in the world do we know if that person has enough rights to sell the property to it? How do we know if they all want to sell? Perhaps he's the only one that wants to sell, and he wants to put a fast one over everyone else. So you want to know, are you the sole owner? So like, yes, I am. Okay, wonderful, great. Or no, I'm not. I own this with my brothers. Oh, great. So you're interested in selling your properties. Are your 3 brothers also in agreement about selling the property, and are they able to also sign the sale agreement if and when I make you an agreeable offer? Is one of the questions you ask right back. And they're like, yes, my brothers are available here. They're here in town. If you send me the offer, I'll have them sign it. Everything is cool. Or, no, my brother gave me a power of attorney. And so, okay, then it's cool too. Or, well, my brothers I don't even know where they live, but they own the property with me. Now we already know. We got a problem. And problems mean less money for the seller. So whichever way you turn this, you can make this still happen, but you do have to have a solution for it. So then you ask, and the more information you get, the better it is. So now you ask, what's the address of the property? So here's the thing, in the housing world, contrary to the land world, that in the My Open Path platform, we have several land courses, and there's a lot of discussion about land flipping going on, particularly tax delinquent land flipping. In the land world, properties often don't have property addresses. So we go by the parcel number. The parcel number is cool because it's always a very accurate number, but the address is also a very important piece of information. So the address is just as important in the housing world as the parcel number. And as a matter of fact, most owners won't know the parcel numbers, but they will know the address of the property. So you also, if you mail to multiple states, if you're like a big player and you play or you want to be a big player, or you send in 3 different areas, like in Florida and in Oklahoma and in Texas or so, they send letters to people who don't want their properties anymore, then you want to ask them what state and county the property is located in, so that you can find it in your records, whether the property is currently occupied, and if so, by whom. Now, why would you want to ask that? Well, very simply, you want to ask it for 2 reasons. Number 1, if the property is vacant, your sale is much faster, and it's also usually, it could be either easier or harder to get into the property, but usually often there might be some vandalism and things like that. But if the property is occupied, it often is in a little bit better condition. And then the other thing is you want to ask by whom, because if it's a tenant, you might be obligated to certain tenant laws and tenant things. The tenant just signed a new 12-month lease, and you want to wholesale that house. It's going to be a little bit tougher with a 1-year tenant in there, unless the house is in good condition. You get it sold to a landlord. But if the tenant is month to month, you can probably, in that case, it's not that much of a big deal, because the moment you have it on a contract, you issue the tenant a 30-day vacate notice, and so that when you wholesale it, the wholesaler can come in and actually go and rehab that place. All right. Also, how many bedrooms? Now you go to the nitty gritty. What kind of house is it? It's a 3-bedroom tour, is a 4-bedroom tour. As a matter of fact, that's something you probably want to ask very, very quickly up front before you even ask if they're the sole owners. How many bathrooms does the property have? What's the condition of the property in? And they'll ask you, well, it's good, it's fine, or it needs some work, or something like that. And that's your opening then in a minute to dive into more details about that property. You ask them why the owner wants to sell. You ask, hey, Mr. Owner, okay, great, thank you much for calling, but why do you want to sell? And then you just shut up. You be quiet. You close that front opening of people's faces, right? You close. You just put the finger over your lips and you just listen, right? Just listen, because this is now not about you. This is about the seller. You become, the more you listen, number one, the more the seller will like you. The more you listen, number two, the more you will find out about the true motivation of the seller. Because the seller is going to say some things that he probably shouldn't say, or doesn't care, and he's just going to say things that give you an indication about the motivation level of the seller. And then you ask the question, in essence, at the end, it's like, okay, Mr. Seller, great. After you ask a few more questions about the condition of the property and so on, you ask, and we'll dive into that in just a moment. You'll ask, well, great. If you pay cash, and if I pay cash and can close quickly, what's the lowest you would sell this property for? And then he might ask follow-up question, well, what is fast? Well, you tell him, well, 7 days. All right, and any contingencies or things like that? It's like, no contingencies. Right, just pure cash deal. We come in, we take care of the burden of property ownership. How much would you need to get? What's the lowest you could sell? And we just pay cash. And then, again, you're quiet and you wait for them to name a number. So here's the questions that we ask. For example, we say first name, last name. We say, is there somebody else on the title? Is the property held in a trust and things like that? These are additional kind of things you can skip. If you get the feeling the seller doesn't know a lot of the property, you skip over those. If the seller is detailed and patient, you ask all of those. And then you ask them about their contact information, email, phone number, mailing address, city, state, zip, and so on. You already have a lot of that, but you just want to confirm it. Then you want to ask details about the properties, like which property address, city, state, zip, how many bedrooms, bathrooms, who is in the property, if rented, how much have you rented for, what's the size of the house, and so on. And then also you ask about the liens, which is, what are the mortgage liens? Is there a mortgage on the property? Great. How much do you still owe? Now you might, at this point, you might be wondering, say like, Jack, why in the world would anyone tell you what they owe on the property? Here's the answer. Because you confidently ask. That's very simply why. You confidently ask. That's all you got to do in many cases. Now, not everyone is going to tell you. Some people are like, well, it does none of your business what I owe on the property. It's like, okay, that's fair enough. It's like, great. And you can try again. You can say like, you know what? I mean, the house is in pretty bad condition, as I can understand from what you told me. So, I mean, it's not, by far not worth what it used to be when it was brand new. So I would kind of need to know what you owe on it for me to see even if it's worth for me making an offer on the property. And in that case, it's like, oh, okay, well, let's say I own just around 100 grand on it. Now they basically told you roughly what they own, right? So, and then also back taxes, like you have back taxes on the property, let them tell you what they think they are. You're going to verify it anyway, right? But the loan and mortgage is something that you definitely can't verify up front without having a written permission from them. So you want to kind of dig a little bit to see if you can get that. And in most cases, you just say, okay, Mr. Seller, just a couple more questions. So do you have a mortgage on the property or you own it free and clear? Oh, no, I have a mortgage. Okay, how much do you owe? Well, I think about 168, period. You don't make excuses about it. You don't make apologies about it. You do not say something like, Mr. Seller, I'm so sorry to ask that, and you don't really have to answer, but do you have a mortgage? Do you own this thing free and clear? Do you owe any kind of money? Yeah, I have a mortgage on it. It's like, okay, would you, I mean, I know this is private information and you don't have to share. Would you mind telling me how much it is? But you don't have to, right? half of them are going to say, well, if I don't have to know, I'd rather not tell you. So now compare it to this. Hey, Mr. Seller, great, just a couple more questions. Do you have a mortgage on the property? You own it free and clear? Oh, I still owe some money on it. Okay, great. How much do you owe? All right, I own 168. All right, thank you very much. And how about back taxes? Do you owe back taxes on it? Yeah, I haven't paid taxes in years, and because the house was vandalized, there's a hole in the roof and things and so on. And it's like, okay, do you know by chance how much you owe? I don't know exactly, about probably 3 years worth of back taxes, or perhaps 5-6 grand last time I saw it. Okay, period, done, wonderful. You remember, you saw the difference? One person is like basically a person that in the hallway walks along the wall, and the other one is the one that occupies the space. Be that person that occupies the space. Be that person that with a smile on their face, but confidently asks these questions, and you shall receive answers. All right, so again, then you go property value. You don't necessarily ask the seller about that if you don't want to. That's fields we have in our software, which we call the investment dominator, that allows you to check these things out, and where you can put the assessed value in there, the market value. But that's something. If you ask them, you ask them like, so do you know what the property's worth and so on? Then they might tell you what they think it's worth. But ideally, if you don't mention it, they don't come up with a big number, and it could lead to anchoring. And anchoring is a concept where you basically, if they think it's worth, if they pull up their valuation and the valuation said it's worth $300,000, then they might want $300,000 for it, even though in reality, after the vandalism and the way it looks, and perhaps the tenants that live there, it's really only worth 200. So now you got to fight that just because you ask them, so you rather not ask them. Okay, so that's something you use. But the next steps you do say is like, are there any improvements on a property? Is there, if it's a piece of land, is there a farmhouse? Is there anything else on there? Is there a cabin? Is there a shed? Is there a mobile home on there? Is there an extra RV hookups? Is there septic tanks and things like that you can ask about that too? How about the fence around the property? Is that there anything that gives you indications about additional stuff that at one time cost money to put there, and that's durable and that you can use? Right. And then again, here's the question that we ask: has this house ever been had? So now at this point, you dive a little bit deeper, and you ask the seller, okay, great. So thank you very much, Mr. Seller. Just have a few detailed questions. If you know them, great. If you don't, let me know. But has the house ever had water damage? I mean, have you ever gotten a phone call from the tenants or so, or when you lived in yourself that there was, or have you noticed that there was a leak somewhere? Either a pipe leak or a roof leak or anything like that. And it's like, oh no, we haven't had anything. All right. How long have you owned the property? When they tell you that, what do you think the property is worth in the condition that it's in now? And that's one of the key questions. Now that question you do want to ask, and then basically because they might tell you, well, I think it's worth 180. It's like, okay, great. Now if we can pay cash and close on the date you want, what would be the least that you would be willing to take for the property? Now, they just told you it's 180. Don't be surprised if they say one of two things. They either say, well, I think it's worth 180, I want 180. Or they say, well, I understand it's 180, but I mean, I just need to get out of it. I want to pay my mortgage off, and they already told you how much it is, 168. And if I get a couple of $1,000s to move, then great. Then you can buy this thing for 170. And you don't know if it's a deal yet, but you know that he has a 168 mortgage. Or if he didn't tell you what the mortgage is, or if there's no mortgage, it's like, you know what, I know it's 180, but I mean, if I can get 100 grand or 150 grand out of it, that would be just fine. Whatever it is, write it in. You might even come across people who say like, the property condition is worth 180. And how much do you want for the property? 250. I mean, and you're like, what? You just told me it's worth 180. It's like, yeah, but the area is appreciating, and once it's fixed up, it's probably worth 250, 300, so that's what I want. So some people are just crazy on the phone, and in that moment, you're like, okay, I mean, there's no way I can offer you what you think it's going to be worth in the future. I cannot even offer you what it's even worth right now, but let's move on with the conversation. Let's see if we're getting anywhere. Or if it's total lost case, you basically cut it off there and then declare that deal a no deal. But depending, but often they're not that unreasonable. If it's in a pretty bad situation, pretty bad condition, they usually want a little more money than they should be getting. but they're not asking for $1 million if the property is worth 100. And if they do, oh well. So then I say like, well, great. So is the property listed with a realtor at this time? It's like, no, it's not. Okay, great. Is it? Oh, right, it is. Okay, good. What's the name of the agent and the phone number? Because here's the thing. The moment that it's listed with an agent, you got to go talk to the agent. If you continue talking to the seller, you can't continue talking to the seller. But always make sure that the agent knows that you're talking to the seller. And the agent will not want you to talk to the seller. But you can still, because the initial contact comes from a contact of the seller. You didn't even know the property was listed with an agent. So I always compare that to this when I find somebody that I've built up a relationship or a few phone calls, and now all of a sudden they tell me they have the property listed with a realtor. That doesn't mean I can't talk to the person I have a relationship with anymore. What it means is that I got to get some more additional property information from the realtor, and I got to submit my offer to the realtor. But even that, I can also submit my offer directly to the seller. So what we do when that is the case, we'll send the offer to both the seller and the agent, just in case the agent violates the law and doesn't present the offer, even though by law he should. So we're doing that sometimes, and then, but in any case, you got to call the agent and say like, hey, I just sent a direct mail piece to this property. The owner told me that you represent him. Just wanted to, therefore, the moment he told me that, I wanted to introduce myself. I might be interested in buying the property. Can you tell me a little bit more about it? And they'll tell you about a little bit more about it then too. All right. So that's basically what you do. Now, this is just the questions you ask through. How you ask these questions and what you pay attention in these questions is going to be covered in the next module, and how exactly you use these questions to actually get the seller to give in and to plant seeds in their head that they have to give you a larger discount.
Are you looking to invest in real estate? Then click on the link right now here and come to the other side where there's literally dozens of trainers waiting for you with top-notch real estate, online marketing, and financial education training. Plus you can set up a free demo account and get 4 courses right away without any credit card necessary. Click on the link right now.